Hey everybody, this is Way to Fail, back with more Kerbal Space Program career-ish mode, where today I'm going to be following up on my moon probe mission last time to actually fly a probe to Minmus, along with another very special, very exciting, and very expensive follow-up mission to that. So this is the rocket that I'm taking to Minmus. It takes a little bit more flight skill because it's on a not a 90-degree plane, so you got to do a plane adjustment. But more importantly, it is much further out than the moon, so you need more oomph. So that oomph for me is coming from 6 solid rocket boosters. Oh, wow, excuse me. Apparently that's too much to take in one breath. But pretty much my budget is under 10,000 for this, like my other rockets. I'd originally set the budget to 15. So right now I'm still a little bit under from where we're going, but of course the matter is let's see just how this rocket flies. Now the trip to Minmus should be pretty straightforward, but you can see that the solid rocket boosters are already pushing my ship pretty far up, and you can see the sort of cloudscape cover. Nothing on fire yet, but pretty much I just get to fly out here, and I got to push really hard with this rocket. I actually got very nervous about my apoapsis not raising very quickly, but I do all right. I do the gravity turn pretty late here, but you can see that I'm slowly, steadily getting my altitude up. I'm having to use a lot of fuel here, but the nice thing about the engine that I'm using is that it's pretty efficient. Unfortunately, it doesn't push a lot on its own, which is going to become a problem in later missions once I have much heavier payloads. But for now, I'm trying to get my orbit up as much as I can, and then we're just going to circularize it and keep things pretty basic. Because I'm going to show as we go through this maybe a little less details for the earlier launches going on, like right here. This is the plane adjustment I'm talking about. I have Minmus set as my target, and you can see that I'm going to be doing a maneuver just to switch the plane of my ship, which will make making an encounter here a lot easier because I don't have to hit one of the specific points where Minmus is on the 90-degree plane. So you can see right here I have my target marker set up, I have my encounter set up, and things are looking pretty good here because once again it ends up that the encounter with Minmus is going to be right at the 90-degree anyway, but that's nothing that's really major or fancy. But you can see I'm burning here, just trying to eke it as close as possible. Now this is going to be by far the longest flight that any of my probes has had to make, and you can see the system actually freaking out a little bit between a Minmus encounter and a not Minmus encounter. But you can see Minmus on the horizon over there, and if you watch sort of the speed gauge, you can see that we pretty much have to sit and park at the apoapse for a while to wait for Minmus to catch up. As you can see, it's going to get progressively bigger and bigger, Majora's Mask's moon style. But there we go. There is the Minmus encounter. Maybe the AI will stop freaking out, and all I got to do is just adjust and watch my fuel because I don't have a ton of fuel, and I want to get a pretty close orbit. But I'm just going to go ahead and try and get closer. Try to get closer. There it comes. It's a small moon with a not very high gravity well. So it's going to push me a little bit, but not a ton. I have to do a lot of work on my own with the rocket just to get the burn going and just to circularize my orbit. But it doesn't take a lot of power to do just that. So there we go. Bring myself in, and then I'm just going to make a few more tweaks or adjustments off camera here. And there we go. I have a much closer approach to Minmus. Once again, very short section of this video. This is not the meat and potatoes of this, but this is kind of a follow-up mission, sort of precursor of things to come, because we will be coming back to Minmus. But for now, at least I have one probe surrounding it, so now I have a little bit of communication around everything, some scanning, some cursory look. Easily the smoothest probe launch that I've had of everything so far. So that's a mission success. Here's a quick look at the stats. Like I said, very straightforward. Not going to be able to say about the next mission. So the next mission that I have is pretty ambitious, probably the most ambitious that has been attempted by this space program before. I am going to be attempting to launch a rover and land it on the moon. Now I've tested this rover driving around a little bit. It does have some headlights, which are very happy. It does have a nice little antenna dish and some backup communications. My goal is to get this to the moon and to get it to roll around for a little bit. And you can see it's not perfectly built. There are some angles and parts that could be improved, wheel bases tweaked, as I'm going to do that right now. Because for some reason it doesn't want to really cooperate very nicely with me. There we go. But yeah, pretty much the gist of today's mission is, and it's challenging my designs already, is to try and get a rover up in the air. And so far, A lot of designs have just kind of had to be tabled again and again because of a lack of power. But this ship is going to be, this is going to be two parts here. This part and then the landing part. But this rover is going to go into space, and you can see the docking port. I'm going to try and dock it with another portion of the spaceship. So you can see there's the large solid boosters pushing me up really hard. They're not necessarily as efficient as the small boosters, but right now I'm having some rotational issues with this ship. And you can see actually everything catches on fire as I have to push really hard up out of the atmosphere. But I did select a heavier rocket for this, and so far that's doing me very well in getting this rover portion up. This is not going to be the engine that takes me to the moon, so I can afford to use a little bit more fuel here. And I'm just going to try and do a 100,000 circular orbit here, because if you've done docking before, and it's a valuable Kerbal Space Program skill to have, you want to have kind of a consistent orbit. That's one reason I have that probe as kind of a yard line for what I want to do. But right now, it's just we have pretty much the rover portion on the top of the ship is kind of a nightmare because it keeps pushing my nav ball. And if you can see the right there, it keeps pushing my nav ball to the right. I'm not sure if there's a better way to call it than that, but obviously there's something that I've done to the ship that makes it uneven. And you can see right here that I kind of screw up my orbit. It's not perfectly circular. Something I'll have to fix. Alright, so now you can see the second part of this setup here where this is going to be fun and possibly a little bit troublesome because I don't know if I necessarily have enough fuel to make it all the way up and back and everything, but we're going to find out. I mean, right now my rover is up in the air, so we could possibly do something good. I don't know for sure. But yeah, let's go ahead and... all the numbers say it should be enough, but the problem is that I've got to actually have enough fuel to get to the moon as well. So maybe I should actually modify this just slightly like I did the other one here. And we'll see if that's indeed the case. Okay, well, let's give this a shot. This is supposed to be the sort of drop ship mechanism that'll put the rover on the moon. Right now my bigger concern is, can I actually get up to my other ship, or am I going to have to just land this and hope for the best? This could be my first sunk budget failed mission right here, but let's go ahead and fly it and see what happens. And so here's flying the ship itself. As you can see, I have repaired the orbit for my other rover ship that's waiting, but right now we have 6 solid boosters. Not setting this one on fire, but I got to go up and I've got to meet the other ship up there as we're now in post-commentary land. As you can see, once again, my tiny engine here is having trouble just pushing out of the atmosphere, and it takes a lot for me, first off, to keep control of my nav ball, because this ship, controlling this ship is a little bit of a nightmare. But you can see as I push and push and push with the fuel, eventually I do get the ship up. It does take a lot of work. But the goal here is going to be to get these orbits pretty similar to each other. And then you need to set the other ship as the target and then try and get close to each other. The basics, which I'm not going to go through in this video because it'd make it a lot longer to watch, but the basics for docking are pretty simple. You want to get in approximately the same orbit. You want to zero out your velocity relative to the ship you're docking with, and then you want to bring them together and dock, which involves lining them up. And I'm not using any special docking mods here, although there are some that are very helpful. I just haven't gotten around to installing them because that would make my process a little bit easier. I can dock manually. I kind of suck at it. In fact, I did cut about 45 minutes worth of footage of me just trying to dock. So if you really want to see uncut versions, I can email it to you. But for now, circularizing this orbit, trying to match the 100 at the other orbit here. And I'm just going to skip the part where I try and target, touch. We're going to go straight to actually having these two ships close to each other. As you can see, the beautiful... actually, we're right above the Space Center right now. Did not realize that. So, great sort of orientation here. It took me a lot of work to do this. Only one of these ships has RCS, and that's the ship that I'm piloting right now. Because the other one, I'm just relying on the small engine to maybe bring it into place and actually just rotating it in position. But you got to have everything aligned up. And then you want to use the RCS to keep things straightforward. You got to have your X, Y, and Z axis pretty much perfect. And then you want what's going on in the nav ball right now. As you can see, I'm trying here, but I'm starting to lose some sunlight. I'm losing a little bit of control because I get heavy fingers. You don't really want to have the SAS and the RCS on at the same time, or it'll kind of throw you out of whack. But you can see I am just going at 0.2 meters per second, closer, closer, and we're actually kind of together. And this is something that I hope they fix a little bit in the future, because it does take a little bit of wiggling, but eventually the dock occurs. And now it's just a matter of, I'm not taking this whole ship with me, but I am going to be transferring fuel from the parent ship. And I don't know why that flashed, actually. But yeah, just a quick transfer of fuel, and we're going to be on our way to the moon, which actually did cause a little bit of concern, because at first I had to fix my orbit, because just with the way the little probe bodies are on here, my nav ball's backwards. Prograde is retrograde, retrograde is prograde. If I burn at my target marker, I actually run into the planet, so I had to oh shit and fix that. But now I do have enough fuel to make it to the moon. It's just going to be a pretty hard burn, and you can see right away that I may be having some problems here. Because yes, I can reach the moon, but you've got to slow down out of orbital velocity to actually get to the moon. But there's Kerbal flying away. You can see the rover right there, just happy as can be, I guess. If a rover probe can be happy, this one's pretty happy. We're just going to go ahead and get closer to the moon. I'm just going to try and fix a nice, but not necessarily perfect circular orbit. But we do want to get in orbit around the moon so we can pick our spot a little bit better. Now, this is where I kind of realize, oh shit, there's a problem. And that problem, like I said, is this mission requires having quite a bit of fuel. And I was really hoping to be able to use this ship to slow down my orbit a lot more. But you can see my fuel's already really low, and part of that's just from the style, the design of these ships. And I can bring my orbit down just a little bit, but eventually I'm going to have to turn something around and make it happen. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's going to happen here. But you get some nice views of the moon and the sunrise over the moon. So at least we do get some pretty shots, of course, shots that we already have from our orbiter. Because the goal is to get the rover down. And right now I got to get pretty low in the atmosphere. My other thing is not really designed to bring it in from space. You can see once again I'm having some problems working my nav ball just because everything is reversed. So here's the moment of truth. Can I actually burn this into the ground? I want to at least be able to slow down my ship a little bit, but this is kind of the point of the video where I realized, well, shit. I don't know if there's really a lot I can do, but I am going to burn at least to the point where the only fuel that's left is in the drop portion of this ship. So we'll see exactly what happens here. Is now I do have a course plotted to land on the moon in the middle of the daylight. So at least there's that. As you can see, Kerbal up in the sky. You can see the sun up in the sky. All in all, it's a beautiful day to be flying spacecraft, but unfortunately, we're a novice space program, so these kind of missions may be a little too rough. I do turn off the gimbals on the engines just because I want them to be able to just fire as they should. But there is one significant problem, and this is a gameplay fail. Look at what happens when I fire my engines. I tried this again with gimbals on, gimbals off. It did the exact same thing. That is the worst probe fly drop ship ever. And this is the one part of the ship that I was unable to test before actually bringing it down. As you can see, I try and hit buttons, I try and do things. I just want to see how I can make this work. But at this point, I think this is where I have no fuel. The mission is officially doomed. As you can see, the Kerbal going over the horizon. This is going to be this probe's last good look at the moon, or last good look at home, because unfortunately there is absolutely nothing I can do. This mission is a bust. There was a design failure, and that goes back to not having a lot of fuel. So we're going to at least decouple and see if maybe the probe can survive impact on its own. And maybe I should have used the dropship portion as a meat shield, but we are going to actually unaccelerate time, and we're going to watch this landing occurring in real time. As you can see, both parts of the ship are falling towards what's actually a pretty good landing site. It's pretty flat, just kind of a nice hill, and oh, tried to turn one light on for safety, and there is the explosion. So there is our space program's first failed mission. Money down the drain. Almost 30,000 spent on this mission. So people are not going to be happy. As you can see, all kinds of catastrophic failures happening, even damaging my own scientific tools and equipment while firing the engines on the drop portion of the ship. But of course, everything eventually crashed, exploded, and otherwise was quite the mess. But no one was killed, just a probe lost. No idea if we were able to recover any scientific data from the crash, but hey, at least we can say that we have hit the surface of the moon, but maybe just not in the way we had hoped. So that's it for this mission, and here are some budget stats for this time around. This is Way to Fail with another Kerbal Space Program career mode. Is next time we're going to be looking to maybe redeem ourselves and looking for what else to do in the stars. That's it for now.